Sean, if you could talk a little bit about M Theory, the types of customers that you service and things like that, that would be helpful. I know that's kind of number two on our agenda after the opening statement. So why don't we just kick that off?
Yeah, love to. So high level, M3 is a IT managed security services provider and a managed services provider and a project execution team. So we're focused primarily around Microsoft ecosystem and we cater to small, medium-sized businesses, but the vast majority, I would say, of the last 36 months has been mid-market or enterprise. The vast majority being logos, recognizable logos. We kind of fell into Spin by accident. We've been providing similar services through various tools and mechanisms for the past decade or so. Incidentally, we're a vulnerability management services team as well. One of our, proud customers is Fortinet. They happen to be our customers, so we do reach a lot of different types of entities in the industry. We do cater a lot to tech companies as well. By happenstance, we happen to meet the Spin folks. I met the Spin CEO and got actively involved in what they were doing and learned a lot about the products and the features that weren't available in the similar tools that we were utilizing. So I made an initiative about a year ago to fast move all our customers off existing platforms. What we've seen is, particularly around the SSPM, we had a very big black hole in all of our customers prior to rolling out this product. We attempted something similar with Aavik about 2 years prior, but the solution wasn't working very well for us. And so when we landed the SSPM product about a year ago, we started effectively rolling it out to every existing customer and every new potential customer that required a solution similar service. So we're very proud to be a partner, and we're very excited about the product. I think everybody will get a lot of benefit from it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I love the humility there. M Theory is a really great reseller, works with some of the largest private equity companies in the world, as well as a number of, I would say, large healthcare organizations. So we're thrilled to be a partner of them, and it's an honor to have the 2024 Partner of the Year from Spin along with us on a webinar. So it's great.
Well, if I could elaborate on that, then let me just jump in really quick because you mentioned something. Yes, we have it at the largest oncology practice in the country. We have it at the largest gastro provider in the country. We're trying to get it in the largest oil producer in the state. We also have it in a number of brands that everybody would recognize across. So the product is being adopted pretty well. One of the benefits we see, at least in our use case, we also do a lot of migrations from Google platforms oftentimes. And one of the values we see is we get to keep the same platform without making any substitutions. All of the changes are done in the background. And the last thing I guess I will leave, the team at Spin is very high touch. They get involved in a lot of the solutions we're offering to our customers. So I think you'll see that they're a valuable partner, not just a product delivery company or something like that. So
Absolutely, Sean. Our commitment to service, excuse me, is definitely something that sets us above. With that, I'd love to hand it over to Will Tran. Let's kick this thing off.
Sounds good. Thanks, Xavier. Oops. Okay. So I'll be summarizing the Cyberhaven attack, which took place around the Christmas time frame of 2024. So just a little bit over a month ago. Starting on the left here, you could see a threat actor. It really all started with a phishing email that was sent to a Cyberhaven employee. The phishing email was very well crafted. It mimicked the layout of the Google Chrome Web Store email. It basically said something along the lines of, your extension will be removed from the Chrome Web Store and click this big blue button to resolve the issue. Upon clicking on that button, it takes the user to the legitimate Google OAuth page. Now, behind the scenes, what's happening is if the user unknowingly logs in, it would grant the third-party application to that employee's Google Workspace environment. The purpose of that is so that that third-party application can now then manage and control that Cyberhaven extension. Once or if that employee falls for it, or actually he did fall for it, what ends up happening is the threat actor now has control of that extension, the Chrome Web Store listing. And what the threat actor did was they uploaded malicious code to that extension and published it to the marketplace. Now, that malicious code, what it did was it was listening for extension end users for events and activities related to Facebook. It also introduced an external domain to receive this information. Now, once a malicious code is injected into the extension, all users receive this malicious update. Now, this happens because Chrome extensions are typically auto-updated when a new version appears. In this case, when any one of the end users trigger a listening event, that data is then exfiltrated to that external domain, which is managed by that threat actor. Now, I mentioned Facebook data was involved here. So to be a little bit more precise, the data that the threat actor was looking for was specifically around Facebook access tokens, account information, and business account information. If you think of like Facebook ads, those were the data that was being listened to and leaked to this threat actor. Now, everything that I just mentioned in that previous slide was just for the Cyberhaven extension. Now, thanks to Cyberhaven themselves, Secure Annex, and some others who've conducted preliminary analysis and research that ultimately alerted the community about this incident, we were able to think about it based on that information, right? Taking that incident and scaling it to dozens of other extensions and number of ultimate end users at risk. You can just kind of picture the magnitude of this incident that, more than just Cyberhaven. It was a total of 40 extensions and total of 3.7 million end users. So Xavier, do you have a question?
Sorry, I didn't unmute. Yeah, Will, could I stop you for a moment and just ask you a quick question about that?
Yes,
So
please.
obviously the scale of this sort of an attack is huge, and we'll cover numbers later, I'm sure. But were the affected environments mostly corporate environments, or were they more personal environments? Being that the Chrome Web Store is obviously something available to consumers as well.
Yeah. I think that tail end of your question kind of captures it, right? It's a little bit hard to say. The extension end users are the ones at risk of having their data stolen, but the end users can either be linked to corporate accounts or personal accounts. But since the data that was being targeted was Facebook personal and Facebook business accounts, I would guess that most of that weight is on the small business owners that rely on Facebook ads.
Understood. Thank you, Will.
I will say,
Yep.
just to contribute, uh, let's say if I surveyed the top 30 largest customers we have, and they're large, about 5% contemplates extensions on browsers, meaning they're locked down. Employees aren't allowed to install browsers and are locked down to a single browser, typically Edge since we're Microsoft. But so this is a big problem across the globe here. You would imagine a strategic attack would bring down a majority of the hospitals, I would say. The healthcare groups that we support are in browsers.
And this is the ultra, I think, intriguing function of our product. And we'll get deeper into this once we start to talk more about it. But of those, let's say 5% that you mentioned, Sean, who do assess those extensions or OAuth applications that connect back to the SaaS environment, I would say probably of that 5%, maybe 1 in 10 are contemplating reassessment of those
You're totally
applications.
right. Actually,
And
sorry to cut you off. I'll take it another level so you can comment on that. They lock down the browser. The ones that contemplate extensions, they just lock down the browser, not allowing it. So then the productivity gets hindered as a direct consequence of that, right? So basically, they're hamstringing the user to utilize a specific tool set that they more likely will be productive. The challenge is, and why they lock it down is, who the heck created the extension, right? And
exactly.
so threat actors create extensions all the time, as we're talking about. So
Who's the developer? I mean, I can't tell you how many ChatGPT alternatives, of course, to OpenAI's product there are on the Chrome Web Store. And of those, I mean, I know, and we'll get into the research and findings, but of those, several were ones that were actually breached as part of the Cyberhaven attack. And
anecdotally, the kids at my kids' school, because they're locked as well for any extensions and websites, but they're getting around it with deep.org because .orgs are now blocked, and now they're all utilizing. So there's a big picture to contemplate here.
Yeah, great input. Thank you, Sean. Will, additionally, I would ask you this question around supply chain attacks. So obviously, we're seeing more and more of these, and this type of threat is on the rise. Can you give any insight as to why this kind of a thing is more prevalent now than ever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think it's because attackers realize that supply chain attacks exploit that trust factor that their target has. From
Hmm.
an attacker's perspective, it's generally easier to get to their ultimate target by going through an entity that's already been, there's an established trust, there's an established relationship, rather than going directly.
A backdoor, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, great input. All right. Well, I think that's all we have for this one from questions. Were there any additional points you wanted to make, Will?
No, I think it'll be a good transition to, what did we do about it at Spin.AI of this
Yeah.
Cyberhaven incident? So I just wanted to share our research and findings. I'll start off by saying one differentiator at our company is our risk assessment database that contains reports of over 400,000 browser extensions and OAuth applications. Now, thanks to this database, we were able to answer these two questions. One, are our customers a victim of the phishing attack? And two, what other extensions, if any, are compromised that haven't been reported yet? So to answer the first question, we looked at the initial attack vector, which was whether any of our customers had connected their environment to that third-party application using the phishing attack. Now, this is important to us because if there's an active OAuth token between our customer's Google Workspace environment and that third-party application, it means our customer's extension, if they have one, would be compromised. Now, fortunately, we found no evidence of our 1,500 plus customers having this OAuth token connection with that third-party application. So that was good news. Now, to answer that second question, we looked at the IOCs, the indicator of compromises that have been published already, and we cross-checked them with our database to see if there were any positive matches. Now, this is where our database was really helpful because, one, we have such a large database that we were able to search for other extensions that maybe have been out of scope for the other vendors or other security solutions. And then also, our database contains the extension's previous versions. So we know which version and which date an extension was compromised or patched. Now, all of that led to our findings here, where we found, like I mentioned briefly earlier, we found an additional 8 compromised extensions and an additional 1.1 million users affected by this, pushing the total of this attack to 40 compromised extensions and 3.7 million total users. Other things that we found was one extension that had been previously reported. We found that it was actually compromised 6 months earlier than what was reported. And we also had signs of this attack campaign beginning in mid or early 2023, so earlier than what was initially reported as well.
Oh, we've got a question. What kind of response or mitigation does Spin AI provide against Cyberhaven types of attacks?
That's a great question. If I could just postpone it to the next chart, because the next chart will answer it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We'll be sure to answer that in just a moment. All right. So I have a question for you, Will. Um,
Sure.
I guess that's obviously a huge catalog of extensions and applications. Can you give some insight into the scale of that catalog relative to other maybe databases out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing is just kind of what I mentioned earlier, right? The sheer volume of our database. Other vendors we've seen typically range from 30 to 80K of extensions,
Okay.
I'd say. But the other thing that I wanted to mention also was the type of data that we have in our database. So it's not just browser extensions, it's not just OAuth applications, it's both.
Right.
So I'd say that gives us a differentiator in terms of having a unique foot in both worlds. Now, this is especially valuable for this incident because, as I mentioned earlier, we not only found those extensions, but we also were able to see if our customers had fallen victim to that phishing attempt because it used an OAuth application. And that's something that I think we're seeing more and more of in the cybersecurity space, is that OAuth is being used as an initial attack vector. So in this day and age, you got to have both foots in both worlds.
Makes sense. A follow, how exactly, and be as technical as you think you need to be, how exactly was Spin able to analyze the additional compromised extensions, and what did that mean for affected user bases? Past the initial report of whatever it was, 32 breached extensions.
Yeah, I again rely on our database and the data that we have in there, right? I think one of the key things for us during this period was finding out that version history and the date.
Hmm.
Now, this allows us to know when an extension was compromised and which versions thereafter would be patched. So that tells our users like, hey, I had an extension maybe on this date, but or maybe this version, and it wasn't part of that initial um, uh, batch of data that was shared. But with our findings, we were able to again show that one extension, for example, was compromised 6 months earlier. So this could have protected however many thousands or tens of thousands of users that downloaded that extension during that 6 month period.
Got it. Makes total sense. All right. Thank you, Will.
Yep.
Is your database different based on the browser? Like, is it solely focused on Chrome, or are you guys across the board on all
Yeah.
browsers?
So we service Chrome and Edge browsers. We have a strategic initiative to roll out a couple more browsers. One of those is expected to drop in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be announcing that pretty soon. We'll keep you in mind, Sean, don't worry. But we've also got, I mean, more and more to come.
Uh, I'll add, and maybe I'll elaborate. One of the key benefits we're seeing, because when we do see an alert for an extension that may be vulnerable, it's an immediate one-touch block off the user or off the extension, so we don't provide access. Want to talk about the remediation aspect and the ease of use on that a little bit when you do find a vulnerability?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Xavier, do you want to take it or should I?
All you will.
All right.
Because
Yeah, Sean.
it's one thing to get a bunch of alerts and all of us get fatigue on that. How easy is it to remedy and resolve? I mean, let me know the answer, of course, but it might be good to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to show our audience a demo if we had time, but I'll just try to verbalize it.
Yep.
Essentially, as a user, typically the IT administrator or the InfoSec team, if they see one of their end users connecting their extension to their Google Workspace environment or M365 or whatever SaaS application we support, first off, we'll detect it. But let's say it is a high risk, and that user or IT administrator could block it. So now from the end user's perspective, what they'll see is that extension will no longer be accessible. They won't see it pinned to their toolbar. If they are a little bit tech savvy, they can go to the extensions page of Google Chrome and they'll try to install it or activate it, and it just won't work. So it's as simple as one click, and it will effectively prevent users from reactivating that extension once
Now,
blocked.
can you automate that? So if the alert does a specific type of alert comes in, that it automatically disconnects the user?
Yep, absolutely. So I love all these comments because it is a good segue to my next chart. But to answer your question, John, yes, our platform also includes security policies that the user could customize and configure based on their requirements and needs. And that use case you mentioned is one of them.
All right, then I'll shut up. I keep interrupting. So
No, please
No,
keep them coming.
we love the additional commentary, Sean. Thank you.
So with that, let me segue into our next chart. Thanks, Sean.
sure.
So one of the things that our product and research team does when incidents like this occurs is we perform a post-incident analysis to understand the attack path, alternate attack paths, and how our solution would and could respond to these different scenarios. So having conducted this exercise, I thought it'd be interesting to share some of our results. So Spin1 is our platform that contains several solutions. And for the purposes of this exercise, I call out only the solutions that could have played a notable role in this attack. I'll also note that there are two personas or roles in this incident, right? You have the extension developer and you have the extension end users. And generally speaking, Spin1 can be applied to both personas, give or take a few differences here and there. But starting off with the top left here, posture management. So that's our prevention module or product, right? So this solution contains a number of recommended security configurations that's intended to harden our customer SaaS environment. For the extension developer, this would have added some extra layers of security towards that phishing email to prevent this from happening in the first place. Moving to the right is our risk assessment. So for all OAuth applications and browser extensions, this solution provides visibility and actionability. So just kind of actionability is what kind of Sean mentioned earlier, right? To us, this means detecting the applications, assessing its risk, and then providing the user the ability to revoke these applications and extensions access to that Google Workspace environment. So this would have exposed the phishing attempt from the developer's perspective, and from the end user's perspective, it would expose the extensions that we now know to be compromised. So now let's get into the hypothetical space, right? Let's say the user grants critical permissions to that third-party application, or if end users had an extension that already had critical permissions and it was later compromised, it could potentially mass encrypt, mass delete, or mass share your sensitive data. So going to the bottom left here of the chart is ransomware detection and backup, right? In this worst case scenario where mass encryption or deletion is at play, our ransomware solution here would automatically detect and eliminate the threat, and it would automatically restore the files all under a 2-hour recovery SLA. For cases of mass data sharing, our DLP solution would be able to detect and revoke that data sharing. And so to wrap up this chart, I'd say the Cyberhaven incident was a good wake-up call for the threat and risks of browser extensions. And I say good because it could have been worse, right? What if it targeted your organization's data instead of targeting your organization's extension?
Right.
Can I add a comment, an important comment for ransomware detection and backup for anybody in the audience? If they haven't had the pleasure of restoring mailboxes from another platform, in 2019 we were running backup for quite some time, primarily Veeam and a few others. In 2019, one of our larger enterprise logo customers required us to restore a mailbox, and it took us 3 weeks to restore a mailbox. And then we swapped out of that product to go to a different product specifically for that. And what we found is unless we created a dedicated environment within the customer's infrastructure on Veeam, we couldn't really restore in a rapid manner ever. Like that was our biggest challenge. 2 hours is unbelievable and doesn't exist, and it's a necessity. We're talking about one mailbox. Imagine 100 users, 1,000 users down a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's unacceptable, of course. The throttling that both Google and Microsoft do limit what can happen in terms of restoration anyway. So it's not so much the fault of the technology necessarily. Maybe it's they lack ingenuity, but this is my selling feature. All others are fantastic and big value adds, but when pardon the language, shit hits the fan and you need to restore, this is what you need to restore from. That's the only thing in town today.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Yeah, one of the, I think, main reasons why I decided to join Spin when I did was this ransomware detection and response feature. It was hot off of winning the SaaS-born ransomware product of the year at RSA in San Francisco, the largest cybersecurity conference in the world.
None of us have heard of it.
There you go, right? Yeah, definitely an incredible feature and an incredible product that we have to offer. So thank you for calling that out, Sean. All right. Will, did you have any follow-ups here?
No, ready to move on.
Awesome. I had one question, I guess.
Sure.
In the spirit of analyzing the incident and what we can do going forward to prevent it, can you provide any kind of insight into the future landscape for browser extension attacks?
Yeah, I mean, if I could get out my crystal ball, I would say we'll see an increase. Extension security is simply not a priority for many organizations.
Yeah.
But as we saw from this incident, the reach can be massive, not just to extension developers, but also the end users who, leading to your question from earlier, Xavier, could be corporate accounts as well as personal accounts. Now, this makes it extremely appealing for attackers. I think another attack vector is exploiting outdated JavaScript libraries within the extension. When one extension uses an outdated library, it easily spreads because a lot of extensions simply copy one another. I think that's what you were mentioning earlier too, Xavier. You see like 20 ChatGPTs or 20 AI bots, whatever, in the marketplace. So with our Spin1 platform, that's something that we try to get ahead of as well, as by trying to find these vulnerabilities in the extensions.
Yeah, well said. And one of the, I think, value adds that a lot of the people that come to us looking at the product, what they'll say is, we don't really have another solution out there that can automate this type of an assessment. It's a very tedious process looking through details that seemingly are, I guess, maybe not that important in the mind of some based on the way that the current mindset is towards browser extension security. Then what we're able to do is completely automate all of that research that you need to be able to do, which is again a huge value add. And I think of course, the ability to actually automate the reassessment of those applications is another major factor. That's something like we've already talked about before, even less and less people are going to want to go forward with and do.
Yep. And hopefully the Cyberhaven incident only emphasizes the need for that reassessment, right? Because one extension could
Yeah.
be safe today and then tomorrow it could be compromised.
Yeah, and trusted extensions at that. And Cyberhaven is
Yep.
obviously a security vendor.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Um, just to wrap things up, I wanted to mention a few additional resources. The first one is our free ebook that explains browser extension risks. Our team has been trying to raise awareness around the potential dangers and risks of browser extensions because we believe this is a big risk that many security professionals overlook. The second resource here is a research paper that validates our concerns over the danger of browser extensions. Now, this research paper was written last year by a team of Stanford students and faculty, and they studied the Chrome Web Store. One of the key findings that I want to call out here was in the last 3 years, nearly 350 million users installed an extension that displayed at least some sign of security vulnerability or risk. And that on average, these extensions are in the Chrome Web Store unrecognized, and they just sit there until for years. Uh, Lastly, the third resource here is a case study on one of our customers, Outbrain. We partnered with the Google Chrome Enterprise Security team on this case study to highlight how Outbrain uses Spin and Chrome Enterprise to manage their browser extension security. They're all short reads, so I suggest reading them. I think we might be sending a link out with links to all these after the meeting. But also, I just want to leave my email here in case anyone wants to connect or discuss browser extension security. Happy to chat more about it offline.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Will. Before we, I guess, start the Q&A portion, Sean, any follow-up, I guess, any closing thoughts from your end before we take questions from the audience?
Nothing specific. I mean, this is a fast-growing company that's looking to be dynamic and differentiate themselves across the other providers, and they seem to be doing so. So I really support what you guys are doing. I'm also available if you want to share my email with resources, if they want to have
Absolutely.
conversations or just talk shop. I'm way open to that too as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. All right. I have actually one here, Will. If you were to be able to boil down, I think maybe two or three of the most important points from the browser extension risks ebook that we published, what would those be? What would you tell, I guess, potential, cybersecurity professionals, or I guess obviously customers or prospects, that the most important things are to know?
Yeah, I think the ebook actually talks more about the permissions, the dangerous permissions that Chrome extensions typically ask for, and I think there's just too many to name to list. But I think the takeaway from that ebook is that these permissions are often overlooked, right? Or maybe they're not clear what the implications are. I know a lot of people when they download an extension, they just want to get to the extension, so they just hit accept all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what the permissions are. Uh, and so maybe for one example, like one that comes to mind is web request permissions. It allows an extension to intercept, modify, or block network requests, which could be used to ultimately steal your data. So
Mm-hmm.
things like web requests or maybe other permissions don't really come top of mind when someone's installing an extension. And so this ebook helps walk through what are some of the most dangerous permissions, and as well as some use cases of browser extensions impacting different sectors, right? Healthcare, automotive, you name it.
Awesome. Super valuable resource there. Thank you, Will. All right. Well, I think with that, we're ready to begin the Q&A portion. So to the audience, if you look down to your toolbar in your Zoom window, you'll see a section that says Q&A. It's important to note, please ask questions in there if you're able to, if you have any.
Team, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to Dimitri's question there, right? What kind of response or mitigation does Spin.AI provide against Cyberhaven type of attacks? Just wanted to, make this very clear for all the attendees. So Spin would be able to reassess the extensions that were compromised, throughout time and before the attack, and then would be able to take action and blocklist those. So if you had Spin in your environment, Spin would automatically reassess those extensions that were compromised and blocklist them, so you would not be impacted by the attack. This goes back to the overall tool, right? So the first thing that we do is we provide you visibility, and then we do an assessment and reassessment, and then the third part of it is we take action, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that part, very clear. And we actually looked at the compromised extensions and we looked at the score history, and we found that these extensions were safe at one point, or say medium risky at one point, but then after the attack, obviously they're very risky, right? So the Cyberhaven incident shows you the significance of reassessment for these apps and extensions, because again, looking at the history, they were safe at one point, and then, at one point they were not safe anymore. So you need a tool like Spin to be able to detect that, change the risk score, and then take action and have an incident response plan in place as well.
Well, that was one of the reasons we left Avik SaaS management. We're a big Avik shop too in terms of network monitoring. We've been using it forever, and then we added the module. And not to knock Avik, because we do like the product and we do like the organization. There was no automation. There was no ability to detect something and then block it across the network of users or network of organizations that are on the platform. So that simple comment right there is a major value add for guys like us. Because we have
Yeah.
a lot of customers, right? A lot of customers, a lot of users, tens and thousands of them. So
Yeah, again, so and Sean, that's absolutely correct. So just to make that like super clear, right? So without Spin, basically what you have is limited visibility and the manual assessment process. So typically what we see is organizations would have a few people that go and manually assess these apps and extensions, but they usually do it once, right? They have no reassessment, nothing like that. So without Spin, you're looking at limited visibility and a one-time assessment that's manual. With Spin, you're looking at all the visibility. So we're going to give you first access to all the apps and extensions. We're going to do an automated assessment and reassessment. So every time the app and extension changes, we're going to reassess it and update the score. And then most importantly, we're going to take action. So you can allow list, block list, and you can set up security policies to do this automatically. So that incident response piece, is critical for organizations, especially enterprise organizations that can't afford to manually assess and reassess, thousands of applications and extensions. So you just improve this process, you automate this process, and it turns out to be cheaper too, because you don't have to pay, a bunch of engineers to assess and reassess apps constantly, right? So just wanted to make that point very clear for all the attendees.
Yeah, and thank you, Armand. That's Armand Agaranian, our sales VP, chiming in. Great input. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. We got another question in. What kind of response or mitigation does Spin AI provide against Cyberhaven type of attacks? Oh, I think there was another one that came in
right
that
after
had to
that.
do with how regularly our database is updated.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, so our database is updated regularly, almost multiple times a day, basically.
Yeah.
With so many different sources from OAuth applications to browser extensions, right? I think Xavier mentioned Chrome and Edge and some of the other ones that we're planning to release very soon, as well as all the SaaS applications that we support and those OAuth tokens. It's a lot and regularly is what I'll answer to keep it short.
Awesome. All right. Okay, open question. There we go. Got it. Thank you, Dimitri. Okay, Dimitri K. All right, any other questions from the team?
Anything interesting on the roadmap?
Yeah, great point. There's several initiatives on the roadmap, of which I think that we're able to talk about right now that are pertinent. I think those would be the additional browsers that we're looking to roll out. So obviously right now we have, of course, Chrome and Edge browsers that we're fully supporting. And those are what we see as being the most enterprise-ready applications. But for a lot of companies in the technology industry, right, they have engineers who have specific workflows and maybe like have the extensions that they like to be able to develop applications internally. So what we've sought to do is broaden our browser extension offering to support Safari and Firefox. Now, Safari was the one that I mentioned that's going to be ready and available within the next, I believe the testing phase is almost to the very end. So I believe our
Xavier,
target date.
just to
Go ahead,
switch it,
Will.
it's Firefox is the near term one.
That's correct. Thank you. Yeah, I get them confused still to this day. I've always been a Chrome guy. But yeah, Firefox is going to be ready and available, I believe, the start of Q2. And then
If not
Safari
earlier.
is on our roadmap to be able to complete later in the year.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all right. It seems that potentially there are less questions than we thought. So I guess in advance of, we were planning to end at around 11:45. If there's no further, Sean or Will, any follow-up or closing thoughts?
Oh, I just appreciate you guys asking me to join this. It was fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess just my
See you
closing
tomorrow.
remarks. Yeah, just my closing remarks is actually to answer Sean to what's on the roadmap. I think as these incidents take place, we prioritize security, SaaS security, and so when incidents like this occur, we take it, we learn from it, and we use that and improve our product and protect our customers ultimately, because that's what we're here for. So,
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys,
Back to the week.
thanks so much for joining. To the audience and everyone who listened in and participated, thank you so much. We'll be sure to distribute collateral based on what you see in front of you. So the What's in the Chrome Web Store, that study. We'll also send out a link to be able to download the Browser Extension Risks ebook so that you can better understand what the actual permissions that might be affecting your organization are. And we'll also distribute a link to the Outbrain case study that we just developed last week in conjunction with, of course, Outbrain and the Chrome extension team over at Google. All right.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone.
I know.